talking about the crazy world we're living in. So we really are. If we want to talk about crazy, and I don't mean that as I don't want to hurt anybody's feelings who is dealing with mental illness, but in the colloquial sense, if we want to talk about beyond the pale, if we want to talk about maddening, fever dream, tinfoil hat wearing crazy, we can look no further than the representative from the great state of now blue state of Florida, Republican Marjorie Taylor Greene. Marjorie Taylor Greene has become quite the she's gained a lot of attention lately as a bunch of journalists and just people with some time on their hands have scoured through her social media posts, interviews she's done with far-right media personalities, live streamers, and whatnot, and we find more and more that Marjorie Taylor Greene, who was well known when she was elected, was the QAnon Congresswoman. She's not the only one, unfortunately, but kind of the very prominent QAnon Congresswoman. She has, if we go back in her, her history or whatever, her work, as it were, I think she might have had some kind of online platform as well as a right winger, but she kind of is emblematic of the much more right wing. You could call it conservative, but even, is this just regular, what we think of Republican conservatism, or is this strain that we've seen over the years, even before Trump, even in the Tea Party days, is this really the same as that? Maybe it is, but it's what she has done is typified that world, right? And it includes conspiracy theory, anti-Semitism, talking about George Soros and the Rothschilds all the time. She claimed that one of our wildfires here in California was created by a space laser from the Rothschild. Ooh, right? All kinds of stuff like that. And I will get to that, Jay. But like, troubling things about the American right, like, not only is it not enough for them to, be aware of and of the crisis that continues to plague public education, which is mass shootings at schools. The right wing used to offer thoughts and prayers and just, oh, well, but freedom and Second Amendment. But then as this new generation of young people who survived school shootings began to speak out, we're talking like the Parkland school shooting survivors, they have faced a lot of threats and attacks from the far right. But even before that, the Newtown, Connecticut, the Sandy Hook shooting was met with tons of conspiracy theory, hatred, parents who face death threats and stalkers and all other kinds of sickness. But check this out. This is a video of Marjorie Taylor Greene. She posted this to her own YouTube page. This is her following David Hogg and yelling at him. Listen to this.
Yeah. David, why are you supporting the red flag laws? If Scott Peterson, the resource officer at Parkland, had done his job, then Nicholas Cruz wouldn't have killed anybody in your high school, or at least protected them. Why are you supporting red flag gun laws that attack our Second Amendment rights? And why
the Karen energy is strong here. Karen for Congress.
Are you using kids to get as a barrier?
He is a kid, lady. He survived a mass shooting.
Do you not know how to defend your stance? Look, I'm an American citizen. I'm a gun owner. I have a concealed carry permit. I carry a gun for protection for myself, and you are using your lobby and the money behind it and the kids to try to take away my Second Amendment rights.
My rights.
Anything to say for yourself?
So he's just ignoring her. Which,
how did you get over 30 appointments?
Wouldn't it be nice if that's like all you had to do with these people is ignore them? Crackpots like Marjorie Taylor Greene. But look, if we get to the end here, he just kind of walks off, and then listen to what she says. Oh boy, it's taking a second to load. But what Hogg is doing here is he's walking to the Capitol to speak to Congress. Oh boy, I hope it's not my internet. I hope you guys can still see me. Let me know if I'm getting choppy, if there's audio issues. But check this out. This is in a video recorded before the election. Oh, sorry. What I should say is what she went to say here at the end was, why does he get to speak to senators and I don't? Why does he have an audience with the United States Senate and not me? Right? And now she's in Congress, so she has quite the audience herself with with leadership in America. She is in the House of Representatives. So check this out. In a pre-election video just uncovered by Mother Jones, Marjorie Taylor Greene is seen endorsing political violence. The only way to get your freedom back is earned with the price of blood.
And here's the deal. If this generation doesn't stand up and defend freedom, it's gone.
Yeah.
And once it's gone, freedom doesn't come back by itself. The only way you get your freedoms back is it's earned with the price of blood. We can't be too busy or too complacent or too worried about offending someone anymore. There's no more excuses. This is it. November 3rd, freedom is on the ballot. You have a choice of either voting for freedom by voting for
So I think we've heard enough. We know where she's going with that. Donald Trump, Donald Trump, Donald Trump. H Word just said in the comments, Greene's thoughts that the Vegas shooting was an elaborate plot set up by anti-gun advocates to push the ideology onto conservatives got me tilted. Well, there's so many crazy clips of Marjorie Taylor Greene. I don't have that one lined up, so I'm not going to tilt you again on that one. You've already seen it. But yeah, she said that. She said that the attack on Las Vegas, it was a country music event. She said that they're targeting conservatives now, people who would be pro-gun. Is that their way of trying to get us? I don't believe the shooter acted alone, right? So this is a conspiratorially minded person. They have a form of magical thinking where if they can think something up, if they can think up a reason for why something has happened, then it must be true. So she's threatening, she said we have to fight, it'll be won in blood, right? And now, I'm going to get to this later. There's already been disingenuous comparisons of these QAnon Congress people, the GOP QAnoners, with the squad, which I think is disgusting and, shameful to do that. But there's already been some clashes between the people in these two groups. Cori Bush, who's an amazing representative out of I'm forgetting which state. I think it's Missouri. She Missouri, and she's an incredible member of the squad. She was a nurse, I'm sure she's still licensed to be a nurse, but she was a single mom living in her car. She got a Black Lives Matter activist. She got COVID on the campaign trail. Missouri. Thank you, Jay. She got COVID on the campaign trail, campaigned from her hospital bed, on FaceTime, doing Zoom calls like everyone else in COVID times. But she had a back and forth, like an altercation basically with Marjorie Taylor Greene and her staffers. These, it's funny. I've been getting in arguments on social media about when can we call a Republican, should we be calling all conservatives all Republican extremists? Obviously not all of them are, but when you have literal extremist QAnon conspiracy theorists in Congress, the Republican Party has embraced the extremist wing of the American right in unprecedented ways, it seems like. But check this out. Cori Bush, a maskless Marjorie Taylor Greene and her staff berated me in a hallway. She targeted me and others on social media. I'm moving my office away from hers for my team's safety. I've called for her expulsion of members who incited the insurrection from day one. Bring HRES 25 to a vote. So that's really interesting. I like Cori Bush a lot. And she's calling for a bunch of Republicans who helped, who supported the insurrection to be kicked out of Congress. I'm going to talk about more of that soon. But look at this. She talked more about it, Cori Bush, here on January 13th. After members tested positive for COVID-19 after being locked down with her on January 6th, Marjorie Taylor Greene came up from behind me, loud and unmasked. I called out her to put her mask on. Her staff yelled at me, "Stop inciting violence with Black Lives Matter." So talk about projection here. Marjorie Taylor Greene wants to tell her to stop inciting violence. Well, let's look at this video. Here's Marjorie Taylor Greene speaking to some conservatives.
She's a traitor to our country. She's
talking about Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House and leadership of the Democratic Party. Or, during the Trump years, Nancy Pelosi was the leader of the party because, Chuck Schumer in the Senate was a minority leader and, they didn't have the presidency. So she was basically the highest, the most empowered Democrat. And listen to what Marjorie Taylor Greene is saying about her.
She's a traitor to our country. She's guilty of treason. That's right. She took an oath to protect American citizens and uphold our laws. And she gives aid and comfort to our enemies who illegally invade our land. That's what treason is. Exactly. And by our law, representatives and senators can be kicked out and no longer serve in our government. And it's
ironic, right? This is very ironic.
A crime punishable by death.
What'd she say? A crime punishable by death. Treason.
Is what treason is. Nancy Pelosi is guilty of treason, and we want her out of our government.
So, in the same breath of treason is a crime punishable by death, Nancy Pelosi is guilty of treason. That is Marjorie Taylor Greene, people. That is what she believes. And, Nancy Pelosi didn't mix words. I think this is really interesting because, Nancy Pelosi was asked about this directly, like, hey, what about what she said about you, right? So Nancy Pelosi could have responded, she wants me dead, oh my God. But Nancy Pelosi, and I've been very critical about Nancy Pelosi in the past, but Pelosi was quite strategic in this moment. And let's listen to what she has to say, and then we'll talk about it a little bit.
What I'm concerned about is the Republican leadership in the House of Representatives, who was willing to overlook, ignore those statements, assigning her to the Education Committee when she has mocked the killing of little children at Sandy Hook Elementary School. When she has mocked the killing of teenagers in high school at the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas High School. What could they be thinking? Or is thinking too generous a word for what they might be doing? It's absolutely appalling. And I think that the focus has to be on the Republican leadership of this House of Representatives for the disregard they have for the death of those children. They not only are they not interested in gun safety and gun violence prevention by passing legislation for background checks legislation, which is overwhelmingly...
Okay, she's going into getting into the details there. But this is, I got to give Nancy credit where it's due. She's putting this on the Republican Party and Republican Party leadership. That's Kevin McCarthy, right? I'm going to talk about him a little bit more in a minute. But to do that, to show, because for so long Democrats, their way of handling Trump was, by acting like he was an aberration from the party, that he was not indicative of the entire Republican Party, that somehow, Trump would be gone and then the fever would break among Republicans. Absolutely not. Now you have a bunch of mini Trumps. It's just spawned, right? This ideology has spawned. And here's the thing. I don't even think Trump believed a lot of this crazy stuff. He just, in his sociopathic, nihilistic way, recognized that it helped him to promote that kind of thing. And so now you have these true believers in Congress. And I think Nancy Pelosi, by linking it to the rest of the party, she's now getting this, flinging that mud that these QAnon Congress people are bringing, and she's getting the rest of the Republican Party dirty with it as well. I think that's a good thing. Jay Coleman in the comments here says, these Q-wingers have no material politics, total false reality rhetoric. And we've seen that on the far right for a long time. But now it's gotten really, really something else. H Word says, any thoughts on if our elected officials will aim to invoke Section 3 of the 14th Amendment? Yes, I do have thoughts on that. Jay Coleman says, Pied Piper Trumpism. That's funny. So Cori Bush is calling to remove these members through the 14th Amendment, right? And I mean, I actually haven't looked at the 14th Amendment, but I did research how many votes do you need in the House of Representatives to remove a sitting member of the House of Representatives. And whether it's the Senate or the House, it takes a 2/3 vote, a supermajority. Now, look at this. As the numbers fall right now, in the House, there's 435 seats, 3 are vacant. But the Democratic Party's in control with 10 more seats. That's 221. The Republican Party has 211. Now, what does that mean? That means 69 Republicans would have to join every Democrat in removing one of their own members. And removing, if it was going to be Marjorie Taylor Greene or more, there would have to be 69 members of Congress to join in on that. Okay? Now, does anybody remember how many Republicans voted against Joe Biden's Electoral College, the certification of Arizona? It was 147 Republicans out of 211. 211 minus 147 is like 64. So even if you could get the Republicans who didn't back the calling the election fraudulent, which is the big lie that they've been pushing, even if you were to get every single one of them that didn't vote for that to vote to remove Marjorie Taylor Greene and maybe others, you still don't have enough votes with the Democratic Party majority to remove them. So this is the thing. I think we're stuck with these people in Congress. I don't think they're going to get rid of them because not only because Marjorie Taylor Greene isn't even the only QAnon Congress member. Okay, you guys got to remember we also got Lauren Boebert, right? Republican lawmaker. Look, she mocked the Parkland survivors over over the Marjorie Taylor Greene video. Representative Lauren Boebert, Republican Colorado, mocked Marjorie Stoneman Douglas shooting survivor David Hogg for ignoring Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, a lot of Marjories here, Republican Georgia, as she harassed him and called him a coward in a widely shared video. So, I don't know how much you guys know about Lauren Boebert. She may have given a tour to Capitol Hill attackers the day before the attack. She's possibly under investigation for that. I mean, here's a way to get some of these people out of Congress. If they get indicted for crimes like sedition or other crimes, if they get indicted by the Department of Justice, then maybe that is a pretty surefire way to get a congressperson to resign is when they get indicted. But if you don't know much about her, she also owned a gun-themed restaurant. Like everything on the menu was all guns and bullety stuff, right? And apparently her restaurant served food at like some kind of outdoor event and gave a ton of people food poisoning because they didn't follow health codes. Very on brand, I guess, for the anti-government regulation people. But so this is the thing. Here's Morning Joe being a little naive about how far the Republican Party. If you don't know, Morning Joe Scarborough was a Republican member in the House of Representatives, and they moved on to MSNBC. So let's listen to this really quick.
Why did John Boehner leave? Why did Paul Ryan leave? Why does Kevin McCarthy most days think he might have the worst job in American politics? Because it's really hard when all of those rank and file members believe some of this stuff.
But Jim, let me stop you there for 1 second. Just for 1 second.
Just for 1
but
second.
You say the base. There is, I still believe, a Republican base that is somewhat conservative. Yes, they're radical, but I think there's some of those people out there. But this Congresswoman's base is QAnon. Now, are you saying that the QAnon base has become so widespread that now is the Republican base?
I'm saying that a big chunk of the base might not believe everything that QAnon, but they believe a lot of these conspiracy theories. And I think there's more of those people than there are traditional Dick Cheney, Liz Cheney Republicans. Go to.
Yeah, Liz Cheney, who voted for impeachment in the House of Representatives. There were just a handful of Republicans that did that. Liz Cheney is she's facing censure from her own state party. People are calling on her to resign. Another QAnon congressman, Matt Gaetz, went to her home state, and is calling on her to resign and all this stuff. And so, don't get me wrong, it's fun to watch the Republican Party eat itself and attack itself. But this is a huge issue. This is big. And Democrats, I'm glad to see Nancy Pelosi trying to capitalize on this a bit, and the Democrats trying to capitalize on this, because now Trump is gone. And the Democrats don't have we're not Trump to run on anymore. But what they can continue to point out, they need to deliver progressive policies that actually matter to people and help them, get the Joe Biden. We don't want $1,400 checks. We want $2,000 checks, right? There's all these different things, but we do need Medicare for all. We need a public option, whatever, at this point, whatever you can give us, help the people of the United States. Raising the minimum wage is great, all of that. But the Democratic Party should also play politics, play hardball, and point out that look what Trumpism hasn't gone anywhere. In fact, it's mutated and it's spawned all of these, the cesspool of creatures like Marjorie Taylor Greene, and Lauren Boebert. Be careful to watch people, the right, which claims to hate identity politics. Watch for them to use identity politics and claim that, this is sexism or whatever. But I am just as disgusted with Matt Gaetz, who has floated a lot of these conspiracy theories, as I am with these people. We have to recognize that calling, anti-Semitism, like the Rothschilds control a space laser and this kind of stuff, this has been percolating in American right wing, whether it's the federal or not, the John Birch Society or whatever kind of sovereign citizen movement. People who read the Turner Diaries, like, the extremists like Timothy McVeigh, who, blew up Oklahoma City, and the Columbine shooters who did it on the anniversary of that day. They were reading the Turner Diaries. So, that's why you got to understand the history of the far right in America, because now it's grown. The internet hasn't de-radicalized people. It's only made it worse, and it's only polarized us even more.